She sold one night to save her father, but the billionaire wanted forever. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic millionaire love stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to our main character. The rain was pounding against the hospital window like a restless heartbeat, each drop echoing the countdown of time Mia no longer had. The fluorescent lights flickered over her father's frail figure on the bed, his breathing shallow, the heart monitor beeping with cruel precision. Her hands trembled as she looked at the bill, $122,000. That number might as well have been a death sentence. The nurse's voice broke through her daze. Miss Carter, the hospital can only extend credit for 2 more days. Mia nodded weakly, clutching the paper like it could somehow stop her world from collapsing. She had already sold her car, pawned her mother's ring, and taken 3 part-time jobs, but nothing could bridge that impossible gap. When the nurse left, the only sound was the rhythmic beep of the machine and the muffled storm outside. She whispered, "Please, Dad, hang on a little longer." Her phone buzzed a number she didn't recognize. She almost ignored it, but something in her gut made her swipe the screen. Miss Carter, a deep voice said. Calm, but commanding. This is Adrian Blackwell. Your father used to work for my company. Her pulse stumbled. Everyone in town knew the name. Adrian Blackwell, the reclusive billionaire, the kind of man who owned everything he looked at. I remember, she stammered. He was one of your senior engineers before the layoffs. A pause. Then, I'm aware of your situation. I'd like to make you an offer. The silence in the room thickened. What kind of offer? 1 night, he said simply. In exchange, I'll settle your father's entire medical debt. For a moment, Mia thought she misheard. Her grip on the phone tightened. You can't be serious. Dead serious, he replied, his voice steady, almost clinical. I'll send a driver at 8. The choice is yours. The line went dead. The air left her lungs. One night, her reflection in the hospital window looked like a stranger wet hair. Red eyes. The face of someone standing on the edge of morality and survival. Dad, she whispered, what would you do if you were me? But he couldn't answer. The monitor beeped again, cruel and steady. At 7:55, a black car pulled up outside the hospital. The driver in a suit stepped out, holding an umbrella against the rain. Mia stood frozen for a moment before slipping her trembling hand into her coat pocket and walking out. The city lights blurred through the downpour as she climbed in. She didn't speak. Neither did the driver. The ride was silent except for the rain drumming against the windshield and the sound of her heart trying to outrun her fear. When the car stopped in front of the Blackwell Tower, a skyscraper of glass and shadow, she felt like she was stepping into another world. Inside, the marble floors gleamed, reflecting chandeliers that could have paid her father's bills 10 times over. The elevator doors slid open on the top floor, revealing a penthouse draped in city light. He was there, standing by the window, tall, composed, impossibly sharp in a black suit. Adrian turned when she entered, his gaze unreadable. You came, he said quietly. She swallowed hard. You left me no choice. He studied her for a moment, then walked closer, his voice low but strangely gentle. There's always a choice, Mia, but some choices change everything. She hated that her name sounded almost soft when he said it. The contract lay on the table between them, white paper, black ink. One signature, away from saving her father. Her hand shook as she picked up the pen. 1 night, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's all. Adrian looked at her, the corner of his mouth lifting not a smile, more like a question. We'll see. The pen touched the paper. The storm outside grew louder. Somewhere between morality and mercy, Mia Carter signed her life into the night. The clock on the marble wall ticked like a metronome, marking the longest seconds of Mia Carter's life. The pen slipped from her fingers as the ink on the contract dried. She felt the weight of her decision settle over her like the storm outside. Adrian Blackwell stood by the window, his reflection framed by the glittering skyline. He did not speak for a long moment, and the silence made her heart race faster. Finally, he turned, his eyes unreadable. "Follow me," he said. His voice carried no threat, just authority. She followed him through a hallway lined with dark paintings and soft gold light. Every step echoed, every heartbeat louder than the last. The penthouse was breathtaking, filled with art and glass and silence. But beneath the beauty, everything felt cold, like walking through someone's loneliness dressed in luxury. He gestured toward a small table near the window. "Sit," he said quietly. A server appeared with 2 glasses of wine, then vanished like a shadow. Mia's throat was too tight to drink. "So this is it?" she asked, her voice barely holding together. "One night, a deal, and then we pretend it never happened?" Adrian's gaze softened just enough for her to notice. "You can leave now, if you want. The contract is yours to break. But you came because you needed help, not because I forced you." His words pierced her chest, because they were true. She had come willingly. For her father. For survival. She forced herself to look at him. "You said one night," she whispered. "What happens tomorrow?" Adrian's expression flickered, like something inside him did not agree with his own rules. "Tomorrow," he said, "you will never have to worry about another hospital bill again." When she nodded, he stepped closer, his presence radiating warmth that conflicted with the icy tone he tried to keep. He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair away from her face, then stopped himself, as if crossing that invisible line would change everything. "Do you think I am a monster, Mia?" he asked, softly. Her breath caught. "I think you are a man who knows how to buy anything," she replied. Even silence. His jaw tightened, but instead of anger, there was something like regret. "Maybe," he said, turning away. "Or maybe I am just a man who forgot how to ask." The rest of the night passed in quiet tension. No shouting, no cruelty, just 2 people sitting at opposite ends of a decision neither could undo. When dawn began to spill through the glass walls, Mia rose, her eyes heavy but dry. "Thank you," she said. Adrian turned, surprised by the words. "For what?" "For helping my father," she replied, "and for not being what I expected." Before he could answer, she left, the sound of her heels fading down the marble hallway. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the city washed and raw, like a confession. She returned to the hospital just as the nurses began their morning rounds. Her father was asleep, his breathing steadier, a small color returning to his face. On the counter, an envelope awaited her. It was from the Blackwell Foundation. Paid in full. Every debt cleared. Her knees almost gave out, but mixed with relief was an ache she could not name, something that pulsed each time she remembered the way he had looked at her before she walked away. Over the next few days, she tried to move on. She threw herself into work, avoided the news, ignored the whispers from the hospital staff about the mysterious donor. Yet at night, she found herself replaying that single question: "Do you think I am a monster?" And the sound of his voice when he said her name. 3 nights later, a letter arrived at her apartment. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. "Miss Carter, your father's rehabilitation requires a private facility. I have made the arrangements. There is a position available at the Blackwell Group in community relations. Consider this: an opportunity to repay a debt in a way that does not cost your soul. Adrian." Her hands trembled as she folded the letter. It was not just an offer. It was an invitation back into the world she thought she had escaped. Mia stared out the window at the city lights, her heart caught between fear and something that felt dangerously like hope. She whispered to herself, "What does he really want from me?" But deep down, she already knew the night had ended, Yet something between them had just begun. Mia Carter hesitated outside the towering glass doors of the Blackwell group. Morning sunlight reflected off the building like a blade, sharp and cold. She could still feel the weight of Adrian's letter in her pocket. Her father had been transferred to the private facility just as he promised. Every expense covered, every doctor paid. There was nothing left to fear, except the reason she was standing there again. The receptionist looked up from behind the marble counter. "Miss Carter? Mr. Blackwell is expecting you." Her voice was polite but distant, the kind of tone people used when they knew they were talking to someone far below their world. Mia followed a tall assistant through a maze of glass corridors until they reached the top floor. The elevator doors opened to reveal Adrian's office, a space as immaculate as the man himself. He stood by the window, the same way he had that night, hands in his pockets, gazing out over the city like he owned it, and he did. "You came," he said without turning. "You invited me," she replied softly. He turned then, his expression calm but unreadable. "Sit down, Mia." She obeyed, every muscle tight. "This position," he continued, sliding a folder toward her, "is part of my foundation's community outreach division. You will manage artist grants and hospital partnerships. The salary is fair. The work is honest. It is not charity." She met his eyes. "Why me?" "Because you care," he said simply. "And because I owe your father more than money." The room fell silent. Mia studied him for a long moment. There was no trace of the man who had made that impossible offer, only a version of him she did not recognize. "If I take this job," she asked, "am I working for you or paying a debt?" Adrian's gaze softened, the corner of his mouth lifting. "Maybe both," he said, "but only until you stop seeing it that way." The next weeks passed in a blur of adjustment. Mia threw herself into the work, visiting clinics, reviewing proposals, learning the quiet rhythm of the foundation. She discovered that behind the luxury, there was substance. The projects helped people like her father, patients who could not afford care, artists who had lost everything. Slowly, her anger began to fade, replaced by something unexpected: respect. Every Friday, she had to report directly to Adrian. Their meetings were brief but tense, filled with the kind of silence that said too much. He never mentioned that night. Neither did she. But sometimes, when she caught him watching her from across the conference table, she could feel the unspoken electricity between them. One evening, after a long charity gala, Mia stepped out into the rain. She had stayed late to finalize donation paperwork, long after the others had gone home. As she waited for her cab, headlights swept across the pavement. A black car stopped, and the back window rolled down. "You should not walk alone at this hour," Adrian said from inside. She hesitated. "It is just a few blocks." "Get in," he said, his voice low but firm. She slid into the car. The interior smelled faintly of cedar and rain. For a while, neither of them spoke. Finally, he said, "You have done good work, Mia. The children's ward renovation begins next week because of your proposal." She smiled faintly. "I only organized the data. You were the one who approved it." He turned toward her, his gaze intense. "I approved it because I trust you." Those words hit harder than she expected. Trust. Something he had never offered before. She looked out the window, hiding her blush. "That is dangerous, Mr. Blackwell." He smiled, a rare, genuine curve of his lips. So was pretending that night never happened. Her breath caught. "Why bring that up now?" "Because," he said quietly, "every time I try to forget it, I see you again, and I remember everything." The car stopped outside her apartment. The rain had slowed to a whisper. She opened the door, unsure of what to say. Before she stepped out, he spoke again. "Mia," he said, his tone softer than she had ever heard. "This job is just the beginning. Do not run from it, or from me." She closed the door without replying, her pulse racing. As the car drove away, she pressed a hand to her chest, realizing that the line between debt and desire was fading fast. Somewhere deep inside, she knew the truth one night had changed everything, and neither of them could go back. The following weeks unfolded like a quiet storm inside Mia Carter's heart. Every day at the Blackwell Foundation blurred into a strange balance between professionalism and something dangerously personal. Adrian Blackwell no longer felt like the untouchable billionaire she once feared. He was human flawed, patient, and infuriatingly kind, in ways that made her defenses crumble. They began working side by side more often, reviewing proposals, attending charity events, and meeting donors. Each time their eyes met across a table or hallway, there was a spark neither of them dared to name. One afternoon, as they visited a construction site for the new children's ward, the wind whipped through the half-built frame. Adrian reached out instinctively, steadying her when she slipped on loose gravel. "Careful," he murmured, his hand firm around her waist. She froze, the touch electric. "I am fine," she whispered, though her voice betrayed her. He did not let go immediately, and when he finally did, the absence felt louder than the contact itself. That evening, he sent her an email with only 4 words. "Dinner. Not business-related." She stared at it for a long time before replying with one, "Okay." The restaurant was quiet, candlelit, and far more intimate than she expected. When she arrived, Adrian was already there, waiting. Gone was the guarded CEO. In his place was a man who seemed almost nervous. "You look beautiful," he said simply. She laughed softly, brushing a stray curl behind her ear. "I was not sure what to wear to a dinner that is not business-related." "You chose perfectly," he replied. The conversation started awkwardly, filled with safe topics, projects, schedules, weather. But slowly, walls began to lower. They talked about childhood, dreams, and loss. Mia told him how her mother used to hum old jazz songs while cooking. Adrian confessed he had not spoken to his family in years. "When my father died," he said quietly, "I learned that money could build empires, but it could not buy forgiveness." She looked at him, surprised. "So why keep chasing it?" He smiled faintly. "Because I do not know who I am without it." The honesty in his voice hit her harder than any declaration of love could. After dinner, they walked outside. The city glowed around them, 1,000 lights reflected in rain-soaked streets. When a cab passed, she turned to say goodnight, but Adrian stopped her. "Come with me," he said. "There is something I want to show you." Against her better judgment, she followed him to the harbor. The water shimmered under the moonlight. A sleek yacht waited, empty except for the soft hum of music. "This is where I come when I cannot sleep," he explained. "It reminds me that everything looks smaller from a distance, even our mistakes." She leaned against the railing, the wind tangling her hair. "You do not seem like a man who makes mistakes." He chuckled, stepping closer. "Then you have not looked closely enough." Their eyes met, and for a long moment, neither spoke. The night was quiet, except for the sound of the tide. When he finally reached out, his hand brushed hers. Tentative, uncertain. "Mia," he said softly, "what happened between us that night? I have thought about it more times than I should. I told myself it was a transaction, but it was not. Not to me." Her breath hitched. "Adrian, do not do this." "Do what?" he asked. "Tell the truth? We made a deal," she said, stepping back. "And I cannot forget that. You bought something that night that should never have been for sale." His face tightened with pain. "And yet, somehow, you are the only thing I have ever wanted that money could not buy." The words hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Mia turned away, her heart pounding. "This cannot happen," she whispered. "You are my boss. I owe you too much." "Then let me earn you," he said. But she shook her head, eyes glistening. "You already had your one night, Adrian. Do not ask for forever." She walked away before he could stop her, her footsteps echoing against the dock. He stood there in silence, watching her disappear into the city lights, realizing that the woman he thought he could control had just taken his heart with her. Mia Carter avoided Adrian Blackwell for the next 2 weeks. She threw herself into work, arriving early and leaving long after dark, determined to prove that her job was the only thing tying her to him. But no matter how hard she tried to stay invisible, Adrian's presence lingered like gravity, impossible to ignore. Every email he sent was brief, professional, but she could feel the tension behind every word. Every meeting was a silent test, a battle between what they felt and what they refused to admit. The staff noticed, too. Whispers followed her down the hallways of the Blackwell group, curious glances, half-hidden smirks. It was as if the entire building could sense the current running beneath the surface. One afternoon, the company hosted its annual charity gala at the downtown Hyatt, an event that drew politicians, investors, and the city's elite. Mia had no intention of attending, but the foundation director insisted she represent the team. "Your work on the children's project has been extraordinary," the woman said. "Mr. Blackwell specifically requested your presence." Those words tightened something in her chest. That night, she stood before the mirror, in her small apartment, wearing a simple black dress she had borrowed from a friend. It was not couture, but it fit her, like honesty. Clean, quiet, unpretentious. When she arrived at the ballroom, the chandeliers shimmered like captured stars. Music swelled, champagne sparkled, and laughter rose from every corner. Adrian was there, of course, in a tailored suit that fit his frame like destiny. He was surrounded by people, but when his eyes found her across the room, the world seemed to narrow to a single heartbeat. He crossed the floor without hesitation. "You came," he said softly. "You asked," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. "I am here for the foundation." His lips curved faintly. "Of course." For a moment, they stood in silence, two actors, pretending not to share a script. But then one of the board members, a tall, elegant woman with red lipstick, joined them, looping her arm through Adrian's. "Adrian, darling, they are asking for you at the stage." Her eyes flicked to Mia with polite disdain. "And who might this be?" Adrian hesitated just long enough to make it noticeable. "This is Mia Carter," he said. "She runs the foundation's community division." The woman smiled thinly. "Ah, the charity girl." The words stung, but Mia kept her composure. Adrian's jaw tightened. "She is more than that," he said. "She is the reason tonight's event even exists." The woman laughed lightly and walked away, leaving a trail of perfume and poison behind her. "You did not have to defend me," Mia said quietly. "I can handle people like her." "I know you can," he replied, his voice low. "But I do not like watching you pretend you are less than what you are." Before she could respond, the host called Adrian to the stage. As he walked away, her chest ached with something she could no longer name. She moved toward the back of the ballroom, hoping to disappear, but fate had other plans. During his speech, Adrian spoke about the foundation's mission, about hope, integrity, and second chances. Then his tone shifted. "Sometimes," he said, glancing toward the crowd, "the greatest change comes from those who never asked to be seen but chose to act anyway. This year, I want to recognize someone who embodies that spirit." The spotlight turned, landing on her. Mia froze. "Miss Mia Carter," Adrian continued, "your compassion has saved lives and reminded us what this work truly means. You are the heart of this foundation." The audience erupted in applause. Cameras flashed. Tears blurred her vision as she forced herself to smile. It should have been the proudest moment of her life, but all she could think was that the man who once bought one night of her despair was now honoring her in front of the world. After the ceremony, she tried to slip out unnoticed, but Adrian caught her by the elevator. "Why did you do that?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Because you deserve it," he said simply. "Because the world should see the woman I see." "You do not get to say that," she whispered. "Not after everything." He stepped closer, his voice barely a murmur. "Mia, I am not trying to own you. I am trying to be worthy of you." Her eyes filled with tears, and before he could say another word, she pressed the elevator button and whispered, "Then, stop making it harder." The doors closed between them, leaving Adrian alone in the golden light, realizing that love was the one thing his empire could not command. The week after the gala was quiet, but not the peaceful kind. Every time Mia Carter walked through the glass halls of the Blackwell Foundation, she could feel Adrian's absence like static in the air. He had gone to Europe for meetings. Or at least, that was what the staff whispered. But even across an ocean, he occupied every corner of her mind. She told herself she should be relieved. Without him near, she could breathe again, think again, work again. But at night, when she returned to her small apartment, the silence pressed in until she caught herself replaying the sound of his voice on the stage, saying her name like it meant something sacred. On the third morning, she received a message from his assistant. "Mr. Blackwell has requested your presence at the main office. Upon his return tomorrow, 10 a.m. Her stomach tightened. She spent the evening restless, pacing the floor, asking herself what he wanted now. When she finally saw him again, he looked exhausted, his sharp confidence replaced by something heavier. "You look tired," she said softly, breaking the silence. "It has been a long trip," he replied. But it made things clear. He walked to the window, hands in his pockets, staring at the skyline. "I cannot keep pretending what happened between us was just a deal." Mia's breath caught. "Adrian, please. Let me finish," he said gently. "I tried to stay away. I told myself it was for your sake, that I had already taken enough from you. But every day I see your work, your compassion, and it undoes everything I thought I knew about power. You make me want to be a man who deserves the second chance you gave me without even realizing it." She blinked back tears, shaking her head. "You do not need to say this. I came here for my father, not for you." "And yet you stayed," he replied, stepping closer. "Not because of money, because this place became part of you. Because we became part of each other." "That is not fair," she whispered. "You had a choice that night." "I did not." Adrian's face tightened with guilt. "I know," he said quietly, "and I will regret that for the rest of my life. But if I could trade every dollar I have to rewrite that night, I would." She turned away, arms folded as if holding herself together. "You cannot fix what is broken by throwing money at it, Adrian." "I am not offering money," he said. "I am offering honesty." He reached into his jacket and handed her an envelope. Inside were documents, old reports, and one letter signed by her father's name. "These were hidden years ago," he explained. "Your father did not fail. He was sabotaged by one of my partners. He took the blame to protect someone he loved. He was a better man than anyone realized." Mia stared at the papers, her eyes filling. "You knew this?" "Not until recently. I found the files while reviewing old contracts overseas. I came back because you deserved the truth." Her hands trembled as she clutched the letter. "My father always said he made mistakes, but he never said why." Adrian stepped closer, his voice low and sincere. "He was protecting you, Mia. And now, I want to protect you too, but not by owning you. By standing beside you." For the first time in months, she let herself look at him without anger. And what she saw broke her heart, remorse, tenderness, and a kind of love he was too proud to name. "You are impossible," she said softly. "So are you," he replied with a faint smile. "Maybe that is why I cannot stop trying." The tension between them hung heavy, but it was no longer sharp. It was fragile, real. She exhaled slowly. "I need time," he nodded. "Take all the time you need. I will not ask for more than that." When she left his office, the city felt different. The sky was pale and open, and for the first time, she did not feel like she was running. She was healing. That night, as she visited her father in the rehabilitation center, she held his hand and whispered, "They finally know the truth, Dad. You can rest now." But even as she said it, She knew the truth was only the beginning. Adrian had given her back her father's honor, and in doing so, he had quietly taken her heart. The truth about her father should have brought Mia Carter peace, but instead it unleashed chaos. A week after Adrian Blackwell returned from Europe, an anonymous article hit every major business outlet in the city. The headline read, CEO Adrian Blackwell and his former employee's daughter, a scandal beneath the Blackwell Foundation. The story detailed everything: the hospital debt, the rumored deal, the mysterious overnight payment, and even her sudden promotion. By noon, reporters crowded outside the foundation's headquarters. Cameras flashed, microphones thrust forward, and questions cut like knives. Miss Carter, did you sell yourself to save your father? Mr. Blackwell, is this your way of buying redemption? It was a circus of cruelty, and neither of them had time to prepare. Inside the boardroom, Adrian stood at the head of the table, surrounded by a dozen executives whose loyalty was as thin as glass. This story cannot continue to spread. One of them barked. Our investors want reassurance that the company's reputation is intact. Another added coldly, perhaps it would be best if Miss Carter resigned. Optics matter more than sentiment. Mia's stomach twisted. She looked at Adrian, expecting him to agree, to protect his empire. Instead, he said, she is not resigning. The room fell silent. Mr. Blackwell, one director protested. With respect, your personal involvement has compromised. What I do with my personal life, Adrian interrupted, has no bearing on the integrity of this foundation. Mia Carter's work speaks for itself. If anyone here doubts her value, you can bring me proof of misconduct. Otherwise, this meeting is over. His tone left no room for argument. When the others finally dispersed, Mia stayed behind, her hands trembling. You should have let them fire me, she said quietly. It would have protected you. I do not need protecting, he replied. I need the truth to mean something. The truth? She echoed bitterly. The truth is that they will never see me as anything but a scandal. Adrian stepped closer. Then let them choke on their judgment. I know who you are, Mia. That is what matters. Her eyes filled with tears, not from weakness, but from exhaustion. You cannot keep fighting for me. It will destroy everything you have built. Maybe it is time something real replaced what I built, he said. Maybe it is time I stopped pretending money and control could make me whole. Before she could answer, his phone buzzed. He answered, his expression hardening. What? A pause. Then his jaw clenched. Understood. He hung up and looked at her. It seems the leak came from inside. Someone in the executive team sold the story to the press for shares in the merger deal. Who? She asked. Elliot Granger, he said grimly. The same man who ruined your father's career. Her breath caught. He is still with the company? Not for long, Adrian said. That evening, an emergency meeting was called. Granger denied everything until Adrian laid the documents on the table. Emails, wire transfers, signatures. The man's face turned pale. You think you can destroy me? Granger hissed. You are the one who bought a woman's silence. Adrian's voice dropped to a lethal calm. She was never silent. And you are done. Security escorted him out as cameras captured the scene. The next morning, headlines shifted again. Blackwell fires, corrupt executive, amid scandal investigation. For the first time, the truth fought back. But the damage was not over. That night, Adrian found Mia sitting alone in the foundation's rooftop garden, the city lights stretching endlessly below. It is not over, she said without looking up. They will keep talking. He sat beside her. Let them. People will always talk about what they cannot understand. She turned to him, eyes glistening. You could lose everything. Then I will rebuild, he said simply. But not without you. The wind lifted her hair, carrying the scent of rain. Adrian, she whispered, you cannot save me from the world. He met her gaze, steady and certain. I am not trying to save you, Mia. I am trying to stand beside you. For the first time, She did not pull away. The city below them was loud and merciless, but up here, it was just the two of them, two people who had been broken by choices, and somehow found each other through the wreckage. The following days tested everything Mia Carter and Adrian Blackwell thought they had built. The board was fractured, the press relentless, and the foundation's donors demanded answers. Adrian faced them head-on, refusing to let anyone rewrite the truth. Yet, the scandal had taken its toll. Stocks fell, contracts froze, and whispers filled every corner of the building. Some called him reckless, others called her a gold digger. Through it all, Mia stayed silent. She had nothing left to defend except her own dignity. But silence was not weakness, it was resolve. One evening, as the city outside turned gold beneath the setting sun, Mia walked into Adrian's office unannounced. He was sitting at his desk, sleeves rolled up, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. "You look terrible," she said softly. He glanced up, exhausted but still managing a faint smile. "And you look like you are about to quit." "I am," she said. "It is time." His expression darkened. "No. Adrian, no," he said again, rising to his feet. "You think walking away will fix this? That giving them what they want will make it easier? It is not about them," she said firmly. "It is about you, about what you stand to lose. If I stay. Your reputation, your company, everything." He moved closer until there was barely an inch between them. "Let them take it," he said. "I built all of this on control and calculation, and it never filled the emptiness. You did. For the first time in my life, I am fighting for something real." Tears stung her eyes. "You do not understand. I cannot be the reason you lose everything." "Then let me choose," he said quietly. "Because losing you would be the only real failure." She looked away, unable to breathe. "I love you," he said, his voice low but certain. "Not because you saved me. Not because I saved you. Because you made me see the man I could have been all along." The confession hung between them, fragile and dangerous. Mia wanted to believe him, but fear kept her rooted. "If you mean that," she whispered, "then prove it. Do the right thing for your company, for the foundation. Let them see who you really are." He nodded slowly. "Then stand beside me tomorrow," he said, "at the press conference. They will tear us apart, or we will show them what truth looks like." The next morning, the conference room was filled with reporters, cameras flashing like lightning. Adrian stood at the podium, calm and composed. Mia sat behind him, her hands clasped tightly. "There have been many rumors," Adrian began. "Some are true, others are not. But I will not deny the most important one. I did help Mia Carter when her father was ill. What began as a mistake became the turning point of my life. She showed me compassion when I deserved contempt. She reminded me that integrity is not about power, but about people." The crowd murmured, pens scribbling furiously. "If my company suffers for the truth, so be it," he continued. "But I will not allow anyone to drag her name through the mud. The woman you see behind me has done more for this foundation than any executive in this room. If you need someone to blame, blame me. I will take it." Reporters shouted questions. Flashes exploded. But Adrian did not flinch. He ended simply, "We are not perfect, but we are honest. And sometimes, that is the hardest thing to be." When it was over, Mia followed him outside, into the cool morning air. "You just told the whole world," she said, half in awe, half in fear. "Yes," he said, "and for the first time, I feel free. You could lose everything." "Maybe," he replied, smiling faintly, "but at least I will not lose myself." She stared at him, realizing the man she once saw as cold and calculating had just risked his empire for her truth. "What happens now?" she asked softly. He looked at her, eyes warm and unwavering. "Now," he said, "we start over. No contracts, no debts, no lies. Just us. For the first time in months." She smiled without hesitation. The noise of the city faded as they walked away together. not as CEO and employee, but as two people who had finally chosen love over power. 6 months later, the city skyline glowed against the dusk, like a promise renewed. The Blackwell Foundation had not only survived the scandal, it had transformed. Under new leadership reforms and a transparent mission, donations tripled. Hospitals that once struggled now thrived. And at the heart of it all was Mia Carter. No longer a rumor, no longer a shadow behind someone else's name, but the woman who rebuilt integrity from ashes. She stood on the balcony of the new rehabilitation center her father had once dreamed of creating. The brass plaque beside her reading, "The Carter Wing founded in honor of integrity and hope." Her father, now strong enough to walk again, sat inside, speaking with patients and doctors, unaware that across the courtyard, Adrian Blackwell was watching her with quiet pride. He approached slowly, his presence still commanding but no longer heavy with power. "You did it," he said softly. Mia smiled without turning. "We did it. You kept your word." He stepped beside her, gazing at the city below. "You once told me that money could not fix what was broken. You were right, but honesty can." She looked up at him. "And love?" she said gently. He smiled, the kind that reached his eyes. "And love?" For a moment they stood in silence, letting the cool evening wind carry the past away. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked suddenly. "The control? The empire? The way things were?" He shook his head. "No, because for the first time, I am not running a company. I am living a life." "You are still a businessman," she teased. "Maybe," he admitted, "but you are the reason it means something now." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Her breath caught as he opened it, revealing a simple silver ring, elegant and unpretentious, just like her. "Mia," he said, his voice steady but full of emotion. "We began with a contract that should never have existed. We were bound by desperation, by fear, by guilt. But every moment since then has rewritten that story. I do not want another deal. I want a promise. No signatures, no terms. Just truth. Will you marry me?" Her heart stopped for a second, then started again with a rush of warmth that reached every part of her. "You have a way of asking impossible things," she whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. "Only when I am sure," he replied. "So what do you say?" She smiled through her tears. "Yes," she whispered, "but only if this time it is forever." He laughed softly, relief and love mingling in his eyes. "It is forever." He slipped the ring onto her finger, and for the first time, there were no contracts between them, only trust. Applause suddenly erupted behind them. Staff members and patients from the foundation had gathered near the courtyard windows, clapping and cheering as they realized what had just happened. Her father appeared among them, grinning proudly. And when Mia's eyes met his, she saw the same words in his smile that Adrian had spoken aloud. "You deserve this." Later that evening, they held a small ceremony on the rooftop of the Carter Wing. Strings of warm lights swayed gently in the breeze, and the city spread out around them, endless and alive. There were no photographers, no headlines, just friends, laughter, and the quiet hum of belonging. When the vows were exchanged, Adrian said simply, "You were the choice that changed everything." Mia replied, "And you were the proof that redemption is real." As they kissed, the crowd cheered again, but for them, the world had already fallen away. In that moment, every pain, every scar, every sacrifice had led to the chance to begin again. Not as the billionaire and the woman who sold one night to save her father, but as two souls who learned that love, at its truest, is not a transaction. It is a transformation. The final shot lingered on the plaque, shining beneath the rooftop lights. The Carter Wing built on truth, forged by love. And for once, the story that began in desperation ended exactly where it was meant to, with peace, redemption, and forever.